Hi everyone, welcome to another episode on how to create a professional map using the ArcGIS Pro software. And today we are going to look at the graphing capabilities of the ArcGIS Pro software. The graphing capabilities, I mean how we can create charts and graphs using the software. Now the software has a variety of charts that we can choose from, ranging from bar chart to pie chart to scatter plot to line diagrams and then histograms. And today in this video we are going to learn how we can create sample of them or a couple of them and then use them in our maps. Follow me. Now back to the main focus. We are going to continue from the second episode of the series. So if you are new to this channel, please make sure you go through the first episode and then the second episode on how to create a professional map using the software so that you can catch up from here. Now, the first example that we are going to look at is how to create a bar chart from any GIS dataset that we have. And then the GIS dataset that we are going to use in our case is the data from the Ghana Health facilities that we have for the for the whole of the Greater Accra region. Now, before we start with creating of the chart, you would have to go through the metadata of the Ghana Health facilities and get familiar with the type of data or the type of information that came along with this particular data layer. Now inside the Ghana Health facility, we have the facility name, we have the facility type, we have the towns, and also we have the coordinates for each of the point layer and then also the regions. And then from this data set, from this data, what you're going to do is to create a bar chart that is going to show the number of facility types that we have in the Greater Accra region. So for instance, if we have a whole lot from health centers, we have training institutions, we have district health directorates. So the bar chart is going to tell us the number of district health directorates that we have in the Greater Accra region, the number of government hospitals that we have in the Greater Accra region, or the number of training institutions that we have in the Greater Accra region. So basically that is what the bar chart that we are going to do is going to show us. So now to create the bar charts, let me bring this one down a bit small. We are going to leave the attribute table on here to serve as a guide as to the data and the column that you are supposed to use to create the chart. Now to create the bar chart, what you're going to do is under the content section on the data that you're going to use, the Ghana Health facilities, are going to right click on it, and then from the options you go to create charts. Now from the create charts, you're going to use the first option, which is bar chart, because that is going to give us the tool to be able to create the bar chart for our data set. So you're going to select bar chart, and then we have another pane being opened for us over here. And this open space we see here is where our chart is going to show once we have selected the input variables for our chart. And then we on the right side here is the chart properties pane. That is where we are going to give the input of the category that you're going to use for our chart from. So now, just as I said, back to the Ghana Health Facilities attribute table, I said we are going to create a bar chart to show the facility types that we have in the Greater Accra region. So in my chart properties pane, under the category section, I'm going to go to the drop down, and then it's going to list a couple of examples for me to choose from on the type of data that I want to make my chart from. And then I'm going to select facility type. So once I choose this facility type, automatically the software is going to generate a bar chart for me based on the category that I selected. So when I click on facility type, you can see from here that my chart has been created showing the number of different types of facilities that we have in the Greater Accra region. So if you hover your mouse pointer over this one, the name appears, the type of facility is clinic, and then the total number of facilities as clinic we have in the Greater Accra region is showing us what 283. Now that of the hospital is showing us 97, and then the health centers are also showing us what 24. So what this one did was that it counted the number of health facilities for each type of health facility that we have, and it did that because of the aggregation over here. The aggregation selected here is what is count. So the software counted the number of the different type of health facilities that we have inside the Greater Accra region, and then gave us this result that we see over here. And then under the aggregation section, you can choose from a whole lot of options. You have sum, you have mean, you have median, minimum, and then maximum. But then the sum, the mean, the median, the minimum all has to do with numbers. So if I select sum, then it means I'm going to deal with what? Numbers. You get it? Then it means I have to, in my attribute table section, I have to add a particular column that corresponds to what? To the number that I want to use. But in this case, I'm not going to use the sum aggregation, but we are going to use that of what? The count, to count the number of the different type of health facilities that you have. Now, one other thing is that once you select this bar, you can see the data that corresponds to clinic for this section will all be highlighted in our map view section over here. And then if you are to choose hospitals, they are going to change to select those that correspond to hospitals. And then if you are to choose that of the training institutions, you are going to see those that belong to the training institutions. And then from the chart properties thing, you can go to label bars, and then you will see on top here all the numbers that belong to each facility type are being shown at the top of the bar. It's my theme is black. You cannot see it very well. Let me change it. Let me change it from here. Yeah, let me use light. Okay, still not visible like that. Still not visible like that. Okay, but from the label bars, okay, it was faded out. If I should choose a light theme and then go to this side, label bars, okay, now you could see it over here. You see the number of each of the facility type is being shown at the top of each of the bars that we have over here. And that is if you go to label bars and then you change how the theme of your chart, how it's looking like. And now this other buttons that we have over here all helps in giving a nice visual representation for your charts. Like we can change, if you don't want the how the heading of our chart is like, we can change it, how the X and then the Y axis of our charts, how they are all shown. We can change all of it from the buttons over here, and then we are going to go through each one of them. Now under the series section, it gives you the option to be able to change the color of your bars. So from this symbol over, you can change the color of our bars to red, and then they will be displayed as it is over here. The red is looking nice, so let's leave it like that. And then on the other section, also gives you options to be able to format your data. And now under the bound section is more or less like a scale, the scale that is going to use for the X and Y axis. But then in this case, since we are using numbers on the Y axis, for the count section is going to apply to the count section. So currently we are at 283, that is, which is the highest one, and then we can change this one to about 500, and then our graph would change as to how, or as to the scale that we set for it. And then when you change 500, you can see that it has also changed. Then you can set it to anyone that you want, depending on how you want your data to appear. So the default 283 maximum bound is okay for me. Now at the format section we came through here earlier, you can change the theme of how your chart is appearing. So you can change it from white to black, and then also to medium black, whichever way that seems fine. And then at the general section, that is where we are able to change the heading and then the names that we have around our chart. So the chart title has count by facility type. So you can change it from the you can change it to show the type of facility. So you can choose the facility. And leave it as the facility, the X axis, and leave it as the facility type, and then the Y axis we can change it to, let's say, number. You can change it to, let's say, number. So Once you change it to number, it will automatically change on the y-axis of our data. And then you can also give a description to our data. So whatever that you want, description that you want to give it, you can also add it to the description section over here, and then it will appear on your chart. So that is how you create a bar chart for any GIS data set that you have. And then this one that we have created, we are going to leave it as it is like this. And then we are going to add this one to the final map presentation of our professional map making. So now in our second example, we are going to look at how you can create another type of chart, which is the pie chart, to give us the percentage representation of this type of facilities that we have in the Greater Accra region. So let me push this one down a bit. So just the same way that we did to the bar chart, we are going to repeat the same process for the pie chart as well. So under the content princess, we are going to right click on the Ghana Health Facilities, and under create chart, we are going to select pie chart. And then as usual, our chart properties pane for the pie chart also opens. And then what we're going to do for this session is we're still going to use the column, the facility type, to show the percentages of each of the health type of health facility that is we have in the Greater Accra region. So under the category in the chart properties pane for the pie chart, we are going to select the type. And then once we select type, you can see our chart automatically is being drawn for us. And then this is a count by the type of facility that we have. And then if you could see from the pie chart, you can see the facility type that has the highest percentage is that of the clinic, which is showing as 56.0%. And then the second one is the hospital, which is 19.2%. The third one is the maternity homes, and it follows like that, as you can see over here. And you could see that this type of chart are very simple and then easy to create. And then we can use this type of chart to make our information very easy and then very flexible to understand. And then in the chart properties pane, just as we did with the bar chart, we can make some other changes to how our data or our chart is looking like. And now in the slices section gives us the option to be able to change how the colors of each of the facility type is being represented. Once you click inside the symbol, it gives you the option to be able to change the color and use the one that you want. And once at the label section also, you can also click inside and then give a different name to your data, how they are all labeled here. You can give a different name to it, but we are going to leave it as it is like this. And then in the format section, you can also change the theme of how our chart is looking like. And then we are going to do the formatting with the chart title and then the legend name. Give it a different name depending on how we want the naming to be, and then we can change it just as it is like that. We are going to do the last example for today's exercise, which is going to be on how to create a histogram for our data to show how the distribution of the type of facilities that we have is, and then also to, if not the type of facility, to show the distribution of what the Ghana Health facilities that we have in the Greater Accra region. And then we are going to follow this, repeat the same steps as we did like before. Go to the Ghana Health facilities, and under create chart, we select histogram, and then we select histogram here, and then we do the same to repeat the same simple steps like we did. So under the histogram section also, it's just like the same as creating any other chart. We have an open space where our chart is going to be displayed, but then the histogram has to do with the type of category that you're going to set for our histogram has to do with numbers. Because if you should look at the variables that we have over here, we have what number. That means you have to choose a column that corresponds to number. So in our Ghana Health Facility Attributes table, the column that corresponds to number is the column for the coordinate, which is the latitude and longitude. I know it's not ideal, but then we can actually use this one as an example, and then you can represent this a different data depending on what you want to show, and then use that one instead. So in our case, you're going to use the latitude column over here to show the histogram distribution of our area. And then at the chart properties pane, right under the number column, our input variable is going to be latitude. So we're going to select latitude. And then once we select latitude, you see the histogram distribution of the health facilities that we have in the Greater Accra region being shown over here. Now the blue line you see over here is the mean distribution of our data, and then you could see it being checked over here as what mean. If you uncheck it, you see the blue line has vanished, and then if you check it back, you can see that is the blue line is showing the mean distribution of our area, and then the mean value to be 5.6248, which is the mean value of our distribution over here. You can equally show the three options that we have over here. You can usually equally show for the median, and then you can also show for the standard deviation, and then they would all be represented on your chart. So you can see the median value is 5.5, and then our standard deviation is 0.08. Depending on the one that you want to communicate to your readers, that is what you should. You can take out the standard deviation, can also take out the median as well, but we would leave it as it is. And then right here it says show normal distribution. So we check this one to show how the curve of our distribution is. So you check this one, and then you can see the distribution, the curve line being shown on how the data is being distributed. And then right here you can see the median value, the mean value, and then you can see our normal distribution line being shown also over here. And just as we did with the previous one, we can go ahead and then make some edits to our chart. But before that, the transformation that we used is none. You can go ahead and choose a different transformation depending on how you want to represent your data, whether you're going to use a logarithmic representation, whether you are going to use an inverse representation. That is all on how you want to represent the data. But in our case, you're going to leave it to none and leave it by the default way how the bars or the histogram is being shown over here. Now in the series session, just like the bar chart gives you the option to be able to change the color representation of your bars, you can change it to any one that you see fit or that is nice for you. And then in the ArcGIS session as well, you can also change the bands to represent a good scale that you want, and then the format session as well, and then the general session to change the namings of the title of our chart, and then the X and Y axis of our chart, and then the description as well. So one thing that you can also take note of, that any type of chart that you're going to create with the software, you see those charts are all being listed under the chart section under that particular data set that you created a chart for. So meaning that all these charts that you created belongs to the Ghana Health Facility. So if you have to go and create another chart for rows, all of them will be showing under rows, and you can either take away any of them. If you don't want to see them, you can right click and then you select delete to take away that particular chart that you created. You can also click on open to open that particular chart that you also created for that particular data set. So that is that on how to create a chart, be it any type of chart that you want to represent your data with, be it a bar chart, be it a histogram, be it a pie chart. And in another video different from this session, I'm going to continue over this chart that you can see how you can create the line diagrams as well. So that is that on this video. I'll see you in the next episode. And in the next episode, we are going to look at how we can represent all that we have done in a final map form. That is the final composition of our map. So we are going to put everything together, all that we have done, we're going to put it all together and then represent it on one sheet for our final representation. So stay tuned and don't miss out on the next episode.